April 26, 2019. The world watches as Tony Stark makes the ultimate sacrifice. Robert Downey Jr., the man who brought Iron Man to life, stands at the pinnacle of Hollywood. The highest-paid actor in the world. Over $14 billion in box office revenue. A cultural icon. But just 20 years earlier, this same man was considered unemployable. Arrested 6 times. Sentenced to state prison. Homeless. Broke. Dying. His father gave him drugs at age 6. Said it was a way to bond. From prison cell to superhero. From rock bottom to redemption. This is the untold story of Robert Downey Jr., the greatest comeback in Hollywood history. The boy in his father's shadow. April 4th, 1965. Manhattan, New York City. Robert John Downey Jr. is born into chaos disguised as creativity. His father, Robert Downey Sr., was a cult filmmaker, making low-budget, satirical counterculture films in the 1960s and 70s. His mother, Elsie Ford, was an actress who appeared in his father's films. At 5 years old, Robert made his film debut in his father's absurdist comedy, Pound, playing a sick puppy. Acting wasn't a choice. It was what you did in the Downey household. But beneath the artistic bohemia was something darker. Robert Downey Sr. was a drug addict, and he believed drugs brought people together. At a party when Robert Jr. was just 6, maybe 8, his father handed him marijuana. "Try this," he said. Years later, Downey Sr. expressed deep regret for that decision, but the damage was done. Robert later said using drugs with his father created an emotional bond. It was how they connected. By his late teens, Robert was drinking heavily, smoking pot, experimenting with cocaine. His parents divorced when he was 13. He moved to California with his father, enrolled at Santa Monica High School, and dropped out at 16. Acting was his escape, his purpose, the one thing that felt real. At 17, he moved back to New York City to pursue acting full-time. He worked tables at restaurants, performed as living art at nightclubs, auditioned relentlessly. And slowly, doors began to open. The rising star. The mid-1980s, Robert Downey Jr. was becoming a name. 1985, he starred in John Hughes's sci-fi comedy, Weird Science, cementing his place among the Brat Pack, the group of young actors defining that era. That same year, he joined Saturday Night Live for 1 season, but the show wasn't the right fit. 1987, Less Than Zero, Robert played Julian Wells, a wealthy, privileged young man spiraling into heroin addiction. Roger Ebert called his performance frightening in its realism. The New York Times called it desperately moving. But for Robert, it was terrifying for another reason. "It felt like the ghost of Christmas future," he later said. "I was becoming an exaggeration of the character in real life." Shortly after filming Wrapped, Robert entered rehab for the first time. He was 22 years old, but he kept working. The Pickup Artist, 1987. Chances Are, 1989. True Believer, 1989. Then came his defining role, 1992. Chaplin. Directed by Richard Attenborough, the film chronicled the life of silent film legend Charlie Chaplin from childhood to triumphant return. Robert's performance was extraordinary. He embodied Chaplin so completely that Chaplin's own daughter, Geraldine, said it gave her chills. January 1993. Oscar nominations announced. Robert Downey Jr., Best Actor. He didn't win, but at 27, he'd proven himself as one of the most talented actors of his generation. But behind the accolades, the addiction was growing. Cocaine, heroin, prescription pills. And in 1996, everything fell apart. The Fall. June 23, 1996. Pacific Coast Highway, Malibu. Robert Downey Jr. is pulled over for speeding, going 70 miles per hour in his black Ford Explorer. Police find heroin, cocaine, crack cocaine, and an unloaded .357 Magnum with 4 bullets in the glove box. He's arrested. 3 weeks later, while awaiting trial, Robert wanders into his neighbor's house in Malibu. He strips down to his underwear and passes out in an 11-year-old boy's bed. The mother finds him, can't wake him, calls the police. Paramedics revive him at USC Medical Center. The judge orders him into a 24-hour drug rehab program. 2 days later, Robert escapes through a bathroom window and hitchhikes home. He's recaptured 4 hours later. For the next 3 years, Robert cycled in and out of jail and rehab. Missed drug tests, probation violations, more arrests. Judge Lawrence Mira had had enough. "I'm going to incarcerate you in a way that is very unpleasant," he said. "I don't care who you are." Robert spent 113 days in county jail between 1997 and 1998. He was beaten repeatedly, woke up in pools of his own blood, targeted for being a celebrity. 1999. After multiple violations, Robert was sentenced to 3 years in California State Prison. He served 1 year at the California Substance Abuse Treatment Facility in Corcoran. In prison, Robert had nothing. No drugs, no freedom, no choice but to face himself. Attempts at redemption. August 2000. Robert is released on parole. Against all odds, he's immediately cast in the hit TV series Ally McBeal. His performance as lawyer Larry Paul is electric. Critics rave. He wins a Golden Globe. For a moment, it seems like the comeback has begun. Thanksgiving night, 2000. Police respond to a 911 call at a Palm Springs hotel. Robert Downey Jr. is found in his room, clearly under the influence of Valium and cocaine. He's arrested again. April 2001. Police find Robert wandering barefoot through Culver City. The producers of Ally McBeal hastily rewrite scripts and fire him from the show. His wife, Deborah Falconer, officially files for divorce. He's broke, homeless, considered uninsurable, meaning no studio will hire him. Robert Downey Jr. later said this was the lowest point of his life. Lower than prison, lower than the arrests. Because this time, he'd lost everything, and he knew it was his own fault. The turning point. Instead of returning to prison, the court ordered Robert into drug rehabilitation under California's Proposition 36. He spent a year at Wavelengths International, a court-mandated rehab facility. This time was different. This time, he committed. 12-step programs, therapy, yoga, meditation, martial arts. On the set of the horror film Gothica, Robert met Susan Levin, a film producer and co-president of Dark Castle Entertainment. Susan later recalled their first lunch. Robert talked about oatmeal being a superfood, brought his own packets to the meal, and started doing yoga moves at the table. He was interesting, she said, but weird. But something clicked. Susan saw past the addiction, past the arrests. She saw the man he could become. Susan gave him an ultimatum: get clean or I'm gone. Robert later said, "She saved my life. I had to choose, drugs or her, and I chose her." August 27, 2005, Robert and Susan married in a Jewish ceremony. But Hollywood still wouldn't touch him. Insurance companies wouldn't cover him on film sets. Then Mel Gibson, a friend from years earlier, stepped in. Gibson personally paid Robert's insurance bond for the 2003 film The Singing Detective. It was the lifeline Robert needed. Work started trickling in. Kiss, Kiss, Bang, Bang, 2005. A Scanner Darkly, 2006. Zodiac, 2007. Critics noticed Robert Downey Jr. was back, but the biggest role of his life was still ahead. Iron Man. The Redemption. 2006. Marvel Studios was launching something unprecedented, a shared cinematic universe. The first film, Iron Man. Director Jon Favreau needed to cast Tony Stark, a billionaire genius, playboy, philanthropist with a dark past. Studio executives wanted a safe choice, a bankable star. Favreau wanted Robert Downey Jr. The studio pushed back. He's too risky. He's unreliable. He's uninsurable. But Favreau insisted. He is Tony Stark. He understands what it's like to fall and fight your way back. Robert auditioned, and in that moment, Tony Stark was born, May 2nd, 2008. Iron Man hits theaters. It grosses over $585 million worldwide. Critics call it brilliant. Audiences are obsessed. Robert Downey Jr., the man Hollywood had written off, is now the face of the biggest franchise in film history. That same year, he's nominated for an Academy Award for Tropic Thunder. For the next 11 years, Robert becomes Tony Stark. $14.3 billion in global box office revenue. From 2013 to 2015, he's the highest-paid actor in the world. April 26, 2019. Avengers: Endgame. Tony Stark sacrifices himself to save the universe. I am Iron Man. Audiences around the world wept, not just for Tony Stark, but for Robert Downey Jr., the man who'd fought his way back from the dead. The man who became Iron Man. Today, Robert Downey Jr. is 60 years old. He has been sober for over 20 years. He lives in Malibu with Susan and their 2 children, Exton and Avery. His eldest son, Indio, is a musician who's also overcome addiction. Robert and Susan run Team Downey, their film production company. March 10th, 2024, the Academy Awards. Robert wins Best Supporting Actor for his role in Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. In his speech, he thanks Susan, his family, and everyone who believed in him when no one else would. From a 6-year-old smoking marijuana with his father, to a 27-year-old Oscar nominee, to a 36-year-old prisoner, homeless and dying, to a 60-year-old Oscar winner, sober and thriving. Robert Downey Jr.'s story isn't just about fame or fortune. It's about falling as far as you can fall and choosing to get back up. He became Iron Man. But more importantly, he became himself. Share your story of recovery in the comments. Subscribe for more stories of resilience and redemption.